adversity, bring it. The struggle, I welcome it. Snooze on life, never there. I am Dave Regina, and this is the No Snooze Podcast. Come on. Welcome back, No Snooze Podcast, episode 180. As always, I'm in the booth with a new three. We have Alan, the cancellation Stewart Jr., Claudio, the voice, Valenzuela, and I am Dave, the body, Regina. Alan Stewart Jr.'s real estate journey began in late 2015, a pivotal point in his career that would lay the foundation for his impressive accomplishments. In 2016, Alan took a significant step by founding Yellowbrick Real Estate, initially operating as the sole agent from a basement. Over the years, he played a central role in the brokerage's extraordinary growth, expanding its team to nearly 100 agents and achieving an astonishing annual sales volume exceeding $300 million. In 2017, Alan received the Realtor of the Year award. In 2021, Alan expanded his entrepreneurial reach by founding, and I'm sorry if I say this wrong, ASK or Ask Insurance.
Either or.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
Which has now grown to represent over 70 carriers and manages a substantial book of business exceeding $2 million. Alan is also a seasoned real estate investor with a track record of over 100 property flips and ownership of a portfolio of several $1 million in rental properties. Alan, welcome to the podcast, my brother.
I don't know if I just I brushed up against this thing, but whatever. Thank you.
Yeah, man. How does that sound when I read that stuff back to you?
Honestly, I'm very impressed by that. When I was growing up, I didn't read that much. So I'm not extremely confident in my ability to do that. So now you're inspiring me. I think I want to get a prompter and try that.
Wow.
Is that hard to adjust to? Or
No, I mean, honestly, we just got it because I used to do the same thing, but look on the podcast and read, you know, but I ask guests to send me like a little bio and I take some information because nobody wants to listen to 17 minutes of a bio. So I take like some of the important information. But yeah, it's very simple now.
I like it. I'm just like,
I listen, I got to apologize. I came in a little hot because I spilt my coffee. And again, listeners know. So I get Starbies. And I had sent a text to you guys and then it came back green because I was in a dead zone. So typically I offer coffee. So I'm sorry that I didn't get you a coffee.
I'm a waterman.
Yeah.
So it's perfect.
So I apologize for that. But again, man, I spilt coffee all over my dash. And I didn't have, the one benefit of having a child is I always have baby wipes in the car. I didn't have my baby wipes. So now there's just a puddle of coffee sitting in my my cup holder.
So I got introduced to baby wipes as well through my child. And now I actually use them for various different things.
Yeah. So with the baby wipe thing, that's kind of weird. But my dad has always had baby wipes in the house. Like I can't go even in the bathroom without any sort of baby wipe. And this is well before my child. But anyway, this past decade, when I read that bio, this past decade has been incredible for you. Like literally. I mean, from 2015, you're in the basement till now. You have one of your team members here. Shout out to Alex as well.
Shoots video.
You've built something incredible, man. And I guess my question would be like, what started the momentum back in 2015?
That's a great question. I don't think it started in 2015. I think it started a lot earlier than that. Matter of fact, when we did the phone interview and we were talking about our childhood, things like that. And, you know, when I was young, just immediately was like, I just always wanted something big. And it set off this like complex inside me. And what I mean by that is it's honestly not always healthy. Nothing is never enough. I'm a product of more. I always want more. And to the point where even when people compliment me and they say, oh my God, you've built so much, I almost don't know how to take it because in my mind, I belittle it all the time because I tell myself a different narrative, like you should be further. It should be faster. You are snoozing. I love the name of your podcast because I'm constantly telling myself that like this morning, my alarm went off at 5:20 a.m. and I didn't get up till 5:35 a.m. So I snoozed for 15 minutes. And, So that being said, when we were talking about when we being raised, right? And no matter what your story is, you have things and you don't have things, and you assign a story to those things. And I assigned a story way before 2015.
Okay. Now I want to stop you and go back to the point of where you said, you struggle with the compliments, because it's something that I believe that I struggle with too. But because I'm aware of it, I am definitely getting better with it.
Awareness.
Awareness is always step one.
Yes.
Do you find yourself struggling to give yourself grace in the moment? Or is it just like, hey, listen, I'm not happy with, or maybe I'm happy in that moment, but it's just a constant, I need more, I need more, I need more?
That's a great question. And honestly, I only learned about the word grace after I was 27 years old. So I didn't even know what it was.
You never had like a girl in your class named Grace or anything
well,
like that?
yeah, but that had a different meaning than. Yeah.
Come on, Grace. Come on.
I wanted Grace for a whole different reason, but that's a great name too. But yeah, no, I think I do. And still to this day, I struggle with grace a lot because I want more. I really struggle with finding that balance of when I do something between giving myself a compliment and giving myself constructive criticism and completely annihilating myself and beating myself up. Right. And I think it's something that a lot of highly successful people such as yourself or anyone, they don't talk about it a lot. Right. They talk about like just that ego. Like I'm either the man, or a lot of them put it, I'm the man, rather than, hey, what's the narrative going on behind closed doors?
Right.
And that's where I really enjoyed. I stopped by your the ACE summit.
Yes.
And I told you I run a men's group just for that reason.
Yes.
And I really enjoyed that ACE summit a lot.
Thank you so much, man. It's something that we're extremely passionate about. But again, it's one of those things, like ACE stands for Action Cultivates Excellence. You could want everything in the world, but the reality is, simplify it. If you don't do shit, you can't be shit.
Yeah.
Right. So like we all have these great grandiose ideas, but the reality is if you don't take action on anything that you're doing in your life, you can't be anything.
I can't agree more. So I actually live by a saying that I promote to my 100+ realtors and, half a dozen sales reps in insurance and all my employees at the development company. I say, listen, success isn't for people that want it. It's not for people that need it. It's for people that do it. You got to want it enough and need it enough to actually implement it.
Wow. I love that. So talk to me about the upbringing. I guess I'll slowly walk you down the path, but I want to know what your life was like prior to 2015. You started to go there, and then we kind of shifted away. So what was your life like growing up?
Yeah, you know what? It's funny because I've been in a closed group of men for a while.
What do you mean by that, closed group?
So like I said, I run these men events, or I started going to them, and when you don't have a camera in front of you, it's very easy to get vulnerable about those things. And up till about 27 years old, I thought vulnerability was a weakness, right? So the reason why I mention that is because whenever I talk to anybody about my upbringing or any trials or tribulations that I have, it's still new to me to do in front of a camera. So I'm constantly like finding like, okay, at what point do we go to, right? Because we all have in our upbringings things that define us, right? Things that either, enforced positive behaviors or really hardships that said, hey, I don't want to be that or do that, right? And I think that's why I connected with you a lot, because we talked about, one of the people that was supposed to be raising me had some severe substance abuse issues, right? And when you're around people like that, it's not even just the substance abuse, it's the mannerisms that follow it, right?
Correct.
The way they show up and the way,
in the house.
Yeah, the uncertainty. You show up, you don't know what you're walking into, or you don't even know if you're walking into anyone. And when you're a child, I've realized in having a son now too, like you crave that stability, like that's just what you want the most, because you can't really fend for yourself. So when you're thrown in a situation where you may have to fend for yourself, it's kind of like, okay, well, this is new. What do I do here? And so usually when that happens with one parent, then the other parent's got to overcompensate, right? And for me, it was the opposite, right? When we were talking about it, if you don't mind, you were telling me that your mother had similar issues that my father had, right? So I'm sure your father had to overwork, do things like that, right? It was the opposite. My mother had to do those things, right?
So your father was the addict in the house growing up,
yeah,
and your mom was the one that was kind of the primary caretaker.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So she had to
talk to me about that.
Yeah, so my mother. So I always tell people, again, I always want to walk this line finely, right? Because everybody's human. And I make a ton of mistakes too. So I never want to be bashing my father or my mother. It was just circumstances. People were doing the best they could with what they had.
Correct.
So, I always tell people though, like, I'm the son of an alcoholic and an inner city school teacher. So it's just, my mother was an inner city school teacher and my father was an alcoholic. And what that looked like is, if my father was around, there was a lot of uncertainty. There was a lot of time where he wasn't around. And because my mother was an inner city school teacher and we don't pay teachers nearly enough, she had to work 2-3 jobs sometimes, working at Macy's, tutoring afterwards. So that gave me a lot of leeway of how I would spend my time after school, because there wasn't a lot of guidance there.
Right.
There was no one to tell me what to do and what not to do. And this is a different age. This is my son's been having issues lately where he's literally the epitome of me, and he doesn't like to go to school. He loves to socialize, but back then when I wouldn't go to school, this was an age where the principal used to walk up to my house and pull me out of bed.
Oh, wow.
It doesn't look like that anymore.
How old are you?
I'm 38 years old.
38. Oh, your salt and pepper is phenomenal. So I was going to go with the nickname of Salt and Pepper. The reason why I gave him the nickname Cancellation, to give context to what was going on, is we actually had a scheduled podcast a couple months back.
Yes, we did.
And he gave me a heads up. So I'm just busting his chops because we did reschedule the podcast.
Yeah, I gave you a week. I think
you gave me a full week. Absolutely. But then we tried to get something back on the calendar and it was already booked for like 8 weeks out. Then we reconnected at the summit and I literally just pulled out my phone. I'm like, all right, listen, we got to get this on the calendar. So yeah,
no snooze it.
I don't like leaving people, because some people be like, well, why is he the big cancellation? So that's why, guys.
Yeah.
What created this monster of a human being here? So again, I'm not going to allow you to downplay yourself here, but when I look at something like creating Yellowbrick Real Estate,
nice,
right? You started that in your basement to now almost at 100 agents.
Well, actually, we just broke over 100 agents. We just franchised into Massachusetts. And I was the only real estate agent, but me and my partner, Thomas Bepko, started it. So it was one loan officer and one real estate agent.
So that is real data, right? Like there's tangible evidence there that you've been able to create and scale something. What created that monster in you?
Again, it was, that's a great question.
I have a lot of good questions.
Yeah, I know you do.
Let me tell you.
I'd say your best podcast is when you stump the guy on the other end. He just goes blank.
He just goes blank. Oh, yeah. Thank you.
I need a prompter. Like I said, I think it was just like when I was young, right? So out of having that experience, right, when I was younger, then I would go to school and I would see a lot of the other kids, right? And I didn't know what was going on behind their doors at home, but I assumed that their life was better than mine. And immediately I was assigning narratives to that. I didn't know I was doing this, right? But I was thinking that my life was harder than theirs, right? Because at this point we're in the suburbs of Fairfield, because we inherited a house from my grandfather, and he bought it. They owned it for many generations. This before Fairfield was affluent. So I was in this area where there was a lot of abundance around, but I didn't feel the abundance in my household, and I didn't feel the security in my household. But all I saw was in my friends. But at the same time, my mother's an inner city school teacher as well. So I'm going to the inner city and I'm making friends there that I connect with more. And I'm seeing this duality of life. I'm seeing people live affluently and I'm seeing people live with poverty. And as I'm seeing that, I don't know which way to go, because sometimes I'm feeling it's a life of duality for myself, seeing at one point I'm feeling bad for myself when I'm at my own hometown where I'm supposed to feel home. And then when I would go to my mother's school, I'm feeling very blessed as well. So unable to identify those feelings, I started being like a chameleon. And that's where I think things were never enough for me, because I never really never went in within and found out who I was as a person. And I was just trying to match to everyone else, right? So in closing, I kept assigning values to things. Oh, if I had this, or if I did this, then I would be worthy of love or attention or whatever it is that I was seeking in the moment. And that's where the disease of more came in.
Right. I was just gonna say.
Yeah. So that's where the monster gets created.
Yeah, for sure. So that right there is a great thing, and I think a lot of people can relate to that. It's like you know, you put scenarios on things, and again, like, oh well, if I buy this, then you know I'm gonna feel this way, or if I date this girl, I'm gonna look this way with my boys, and it's like that constant chase. And I think a lot of men relate to that
100%.
100%, and that's a battle every single day. I think I had a local you've heard of 914 Inc, right?
No.
914 Inc magazine.
Okay.
It's a large magazine, but there was a best of business, top business professionals, 30 under 30.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm 34 now. But at the time I was 29. So I think they felt bad for me.
You don't dye none, right?
So no, not up top. No.
Wow.
Not up top.
All right.
But the beard, you know what I'm saying? Just for men. Shout out to my guys over there. So I think they let me in just because I was 29 years old, and I felt bad. Like, all right, let's give this guy 30 under 30. No,
that's what you're saying.
I'm downplaying.
Yeah,
exactly. So I remember in that moment, though, and I've shared it on this podcast, when I got that award, I should have been so excited. And everybody around me was like, oh my God, this is great. This is great. My family was so proud.
Yeah.
Like my dad was like, oh my God, I wanted to bring grandma. Like you didn't tell me this was going to be so big. The county executives, state legislators, everybody was there and really taking it in. Do you know the only freaking thought on my mind at that time was, if I am not a top 40 under 40, this means nothing to me. And I regret that moment so much in my life, because I did not even, I remember it was a beautiful day. It was outside at Glen Island Harbor Club in New Rochelle on the water, and everybody, like, families were taking pictures together, and people were so proud of one another. And I remember sitting there and being like, yeah, this doesn't mean anything to me. It was a moment in my life where I was like, I got to get rid of this, because I'm sitting here and I'm almost miserable.
Yep.
Because I'm like, yeah, like it's cool, you know, I could put it on a resume or something, but really, what is it if I can't repeat it? If I can't do it again?
Yeah.
So since that time,
or if
over
you
the
can't
past,
repeat it, is it even worse?
That's what I'm saying.
Did
so
I
over
even
the
really
past
do it?
5 years, I've really tried to become conscious of that stuff.
You met Grace.
What?
You met Grace.
I did meet Grace.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Grace is instrumental in my life, to be honest. You know, being funny with that statement, but you know, my relationship, I'm very faithful. I don't really say I'm religious by any means, because I really don't. I don't belong to a specific church. Mom's side of the family is Jewish. Dad's side of the family is Catholic, and ironically, I'm Christian.
My mother's side of the family is Jewish as well.
There you go, man. But like, I don't identify with either. I'm very, very attached and in tune with the Christian faith, just because, you know, I have certain beliefs. But I remember saying to my dad, who's in the Catholic Church, and he's been in the Catholic Church his entire life, I said, Dad, I was married at the time, and I'm like, well, how am I supposed to go to a priest and ask for, like, you know, guidance and wisdom on a marriage or a relationship when this guy has never even been with a woman? But in the Christian church, the pastor can be married and have children. Yeah. Right. So like, that to me was I'm very simple with that type of stuff. That's really all I needed. So then from there, I listened to 30 minutes of Joel Osteen every single day. It's the first thing that I do. I put it in my ear. Just sets the tone for my day. Are you faith-based, and what's your relationship with the higher power?
I am. Yeah. So I don't visit. I have had my experiences with church where I go and then don't go, but I definitely believe in something greater than myself, because it's the only thing that gets me through sometimes, especially those moments where I'm unwilling to be vulnerable and talk to other men, and I'm completely internalizing and being an island, right? I need that connection with something to help pull me out of it, right? And
I like that term, being an island.
Yeah.
I heard that one.
Yeah, and I think there's a saying out there that no man is an island, but I think what we were talking about, that disease of more, is the issue is that a lot of us are islands, right? And not to go back to the ACE Summit and the men's group that I do, but the more that I grow as a man, the more I realize having people around you that you're willing to utilize as a sounding board and get vulnerable with is the most important thing that you can have, because that talks the monster off the ledge, or it feeds the monster to push for more. And it's in closing what you were talking about, how you look at one pastor and then you look at the other pastor. Why does this one have this? And I'm not going to ask relationship advice from a pastor that's not allowed to be married.
Right.
But he may give me great advice for something else. And that's just identifying your sounding boards and which ones have what you want, and knowing to go to certain people for selective information.
Right.
For example, like my mother, if I want to learn how to be completely selfless and give my shirt off my back and be caring and lend an empathetic ear, that's somebody I would go to, right? But when it comes to maybe some financial advice, she comes to me for that.
Right.
So we realize the strengths, and to go to the other person, but it's so important to the willingness to actually go to the other person.
Right. You mentioned the word strengths, and one of your strengths for sure is being able to scale. This podcast, this platform serves two purposes, right?
Okay.
To encourage and inspire everybody to step into their own stories, but then also for us to provide value to listeners. So my question to you is, for people who are looking to scale a business, you going from 0 to over 100 agents, what were two pivotal, I'll call them chess moves, that you made that you now know to work when you're scaling a business?
Okay.
I know. Great question.
No, yeah, it is a great question. I mean, I would say if we're talking about just strictly scalability, I would say the 2 Ds, meaning duplication and delegation. And delegation always comes after duplication. So first and foremost, anytime I start a new business, I am immediately looking for patterns in that business. Patterns can be behaviors, like things that I have to do over and over again. And how can I duplicate them? And that's systems. And when we say systems, it's like a buzzword online a lot. And people throw that word around, but a system can be as simple as a checklist. And we put together a procedural checklist. For example, when Claudio was setting this up, I'm sure he sets it up the same way every single time. When you put your pants on this morning, I'll ask you, which leg did you put in first?
I go left.
Do you do left every single time?
Yeah.
Yep.
But my system I don't think would be that specific. My system would be picking out my clothes the night before.
Okay. So yeah, exactly. Yeah. But, and we're just giving like a quick 100%. Example of it, right? So we need to figure out what can we duplicate, right? And we do it for ourselves first. So really quickly, I identified, okay, what about the real estate process is duplicatable? What's the same? What hits the same no matter what?
What was that?
What are my uncontrollable variables? Well, first I started with benchmarks of the whole process.
Okay.
Like I understood, I needed to understand the process of what I do. That's arguably one of the most important things that I can, values that I can give to one of my clients. When anybody gets started in any business, they're always looking for their unique value proposition. And a lot of times their unique value proposition is very simple, saying, well, I care the most, or I'll pick up my phone at any given time of the day. And because we don't believe in ourselves, we don't have that value. But then just honestly knowing the process intimately. So then I identified the benchmarks of the process, saying, okay, well, there's always, let's take a buyer's representation. There's sign the buyer's representation. There's paperwork, show the properties, go under contract, do the appraisal, do the inspection, then do the appraisal, get the mortgage commitment, do the walkthrough, do the closing. That's very high level. It's a lot more intimate than that, right? Yeah. But so I quickly started saying, okay, well, let's break down each part of those segments and how can I give the best experience of the paperwork up front? So I'd create a checklist process to that. And now I would just religiously follow that. So that was duplicatable. Then once I duplicate it and I'm doing it really efficiently, now I'm making enough money where then I could start to delegate it and say, okay, which out of these processes are not my best use of time? And how can I find somebody that has that skill set that's better than mine where I can now delegate it out? And then it's extremely scalable. And you can do that as a one-man show. And then eventually you can then start to compound from there.
I like that, man. So I'm going to ask you this because I think we share the same type of upbringing and, that angst and the anxiety and I don't want to say turmoil, but the stress that was in the house, right?
Yeah, that's why I have all this gray hair.
Something that I've been able to diagnose later on is that there were real skills that I had to learn very quickly by being around that type of environment.
Yeah.
One of them specifically was being able to read a room.
Yes.
Right? So like, when I would walk into my home, I didn't know what type of behavior my mom was going to be on, right? So like I had to adapt to the energy that was in the room, but then also try to protect myself to make sure that I didn't allow that energy to spiral.
Mhm.
So I would have to come up with little things to negotiate, to make sure that like I stayed in a space, or my brother and sister stayed in a happy space if my mom was in a negative place. Sometimes I'd walk in the door ready for action, and she was in a great mood. So like it was really learning how to read the energy of the room is something that I really can diagnose now, looking back.
Yep.
And I think that I've been able to now implement that into like my business, right?
100%.
I don't allow other people's energy to dictate my energy. It's just it's a rule of thumb for me. Like if you want to be on your bullshit, that's fine, but I'm not going to choose to allow your negative energy to affect my day.
Yeah.
Is there something that like that you can now look back on and be like, okay, this actually made me stronger in business?
Yeah, 100%. Hindsight's 2020. So when I was going through all those things as a child, and I got in those moments where maybe I was feeling bad for myself, I remember always going back to myself and saying, hey, this is going to build skills in me. And when I'm older, I'm going to be able to leverage these skills. And I'm glad that you mentioned it, because what you're talking about is being observant, right? And being observant is an early onset of being resourceful, because you can't be resourceful until you're observant. And when you're put in an unstable environment, you're forced to be observant, right? And what I think what was happening to me, and I believe what was happening to you, is when you're walking into unpredictability, right? And you need to read a room very quickly, and then you need to establish needs, and you need to, I need to establish needs, and I need to figure out, okay, what behaviors am I either escalating or de-escalating right now? If I'm walking into a positive room in a positive environment, and I was tense and ready to de-escalate or be on the defensive, and I see that it's good, boom, I want to feed that behavior, and I want to start to accelerate it a little more, because I don't know how long this high is going to ride, so let's roll with it, right? And then it's the same thing with the de-escalation. Oh, I'm walking in, I'm getting hit in the face with the energy, and it's just like, how do I break this energy down? And that translates so much in business when we get older, because business is unpredictable. Life is just unpredictable. Me and Alex, we're on the way up here. We're always having philosophical conversations about things like that, and we just need to be able to identify those things and either feed them or de-escalate them, right? So it definitely helps a lot, because once you're able to read the room and start to feed and block out the things or de-escalate the things that you don't want to feed, then you can start to be resourceful and start to use that momentum to push it into the direction that you want, no matter what happens. Because going back to God, right? You want to make God laugh, make plan or tell him your plans.
Yeah.
He will. It will never go the way
when you
planned.
make plans. God laughs.
Something like that. Yeah.
No, it's good. This episode is brought to you by Hudson Valley Teeth Whitening. Hudson Valley Teeth Whitening is an experienced teeth whitening salon where you can get up to 7 shades lighter with just a 60 or 90-minute session in a professional and relaxing setting. They offer the most superior product coupled with the highest quality of customer service available to get you instant results. Whether you have an important event to attend, such as a wedding, birthday, anniversary, interview, or you are just unhappy with the color of your teeth, this LED light technology helps whiten your teeth fast and easy. At Hudson Valley Teeth Whitening, they understand how important your smile is to you. And speaking from personal experience, you'll be guided by highly efficient staff in a relaxing environment to reach your desired shade. Let them know you're a friend of Dave's from the No Snooze podcast and connect with them at HudsonValleyTeethWhitening.com or on Instagram at HV Teeth Whitening. Now, back to the epi. So you mentioned you woke up at 5:20 today.
Today.
Are there today?
Yeah.
5:35.
Yeah.
You snoozed. Are there certain habits and routines that you live by now?
Yeah. So for a long period of time, there was, and I was very strict with my routines. And then there was a long period of time where things happened in my life and those routines fell out, and I would beat myself up about it. Right. And then recently, a lot of my story has been finding grace with myself and saying, you don't have to have a routine every single day to be successful or to be fulfilled. And I remember when I was falling out of those routines, like whether it's, reading and writing in the morning or exercising or doing some breathing or all the good stuff. Some gets cold plunge, whatever it is. I mean, you can literally fill it with a million different things, whatever's most important to you.
Right.
But when I fell out of it, I was beating myself up over it like a lot, being like, I'm not disciplined. I'm snoozing right now. And then it started spiraling. Right. And But this morning I woke up early and I hit a little bit of a routine, and I'm grateful for the day because I did it today.
Yep.
And hopefully I can do it tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, what I didn't tell you is I hurt my back this last weekend.
Oh, wow.
Like really, really bad.
What'd you do?
I think it was an injury from exercising that I was kind of, pushing out. And then I woke up on Saturday. I couldn't get out of bed.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm fearful of that.
Honestly, it was probably one of the hardest things. I've been through a lot in my life, but it was one of the hardest things I've ever been through. I was questioning. I'm like, is this going to be a permanent injury? Is this going to come back over and over again? Because I love to exercise and make that part of my routine.
Right.
So, but I'm feeling a little better today. But I was out of my routine for a very long time. But the last 2 days, being forced to be at my house, I started hitting that. It forced me to reflect, and then I started hitting my little routines again. I started reading some like Stoic literature and things like that, and I was so if it just goes to show if things are not going your way, you can easily leverage them and create the momentum to go your way.
So before we get into fatherhood, right? Because I know you have a son as well. How did your father's journey continue? Is he still with us today?
No, he passed away a while ago.
He did.
Yeah. So, no, my father. Honestly, it was one of the best things that ever happened. Not him passing. I'm saying like the dynamic that we had growing up was one of the best things that ever happened to me. In the moment, I didn't feel that way because I was just jealous of all my friends growing up. They seemed to have a great connection with their father. They were playing catch. They were doing all that fun stuff, and that just wasn't the story for me. And I had a lot of resentments for that. And when I was in 5th grade, I actually remember walking to school. I walked my younger brother to school, just like you. I had to take care of my younger brother a lot. And I remember hearing a big thud upstairs and, unpredictability. I nudged my brother down to the school and I went upstairs. My father is convulsing on the floor, right? And he's having a brain aneurysm and he was going into like respiratory arrest, right? I don't know why. Speaking of God, like I just downloaded, like prop his neck up, start breathing into him and call 911.
In 5th grade.
This is when I was in 5th grade.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and it happened once again when I was in high school too. But the reason why I'm telling you that is because, I don't know what the download was. I did what I had to do. He went away and he went into a medically induced coma. And then after that, he had to do physical rehabilitation because they cut out a frontal part of his lobe. He had to have brain surgery, had a big scar for the rest of his life. And then after that, he had to go to drug rehabilitation. So I didn't see him for like 2 years. And from 5th grade to like going into 7th or 8th grade, then it was no hold bars, right? It was, I'm just getting raised by the neighborhood. My mom's working super hard. I stopped hanging around my younger brother a lot more and just started, kind of, pushing out and being a product of my environment. So why is that important, right? So I resented that. And I remember the day I got the call. By the time I was in like 8th grade, this is back when Nokia phones. Remember the big blocks?
Snake.
I was literally just going to say, I was the coolest kid on the bus.
Yeah.
But my mom gave me a phone because I stopped coming home. And she just wanted to give me a phone because she's like, I don't know where you are a lot of the time. And I remember getting the call being like, your father's home. And I was the man of the house now, right? A lot of my older brothers were out of the house by then. And
How many siblings did you have?
I have 7 brothers and 1 sister.
Wow.
Not all from one marriage.
Okay.
One of my brothers has passed since, but
so you were the man of the house. Mom gave you the call.
Yeah.
Hey, dad's here.
Yeah. So I was gonna go home and I was thinking to myself, like, how dare this dude? I'm gonna tell him off. I'm gonna tell him exactly, what exactly I think of him. And I remember going home and there was like a shell of a man of what I used to know, meaning he was really brittle. He had the scar here. He was on oxygen at the time, right? And just kind of looking at that and feeling bad for him, but being angry at the same time. And once again, because I didn't have connection with a lot of other people, because I was constantly comparing my life with others, whether I was either better than or less than, I didn't have a way to kind of process it. So I just pushed it down. And as men, usually when we push things like that down, the only emotion we feel is anger, right? But I was also forced in a position where I had to be around this man and didn't know how to process it or feel from it. So I ran from it. But later in life, when I graduated high school, barely, actually, they kind of just pushed me out of high school because they didn't want me there anymore because I was very toxic. But later in life, I got assigned to be his his
Proxy.
yeah. So my job was to bring him to and from his doctor appointments. He was meant to live 4 years from when he came back. That's what the doctor said. You got 4 years because he came back with emphysema. Emphysema is like breathing through a broken straw.
Well,
And he lasted till up when I was 27 years old because I was like this, my life was a mess, right? And the blessing was because I got assigned this power of attorney and proxy, and I was responsible for bringing him to the hospital and literally if something went wrong, I could have signed off and made the decision. And in doing that, I was in the lowest point of my life, not because of what was happening with him and me, but because of the way I was treating myself. And I didn't know what I wanted or if I even wanted to really do anything or go on anymore. But I kept telling myself, hey, as soon as he passes, then I give myself permission to make decisions about my own life. Like I'm talking about like hard decisions where like I didn't even know if I wanted to live anymore. And he lasted so long, and it forced me to really show up, get out of depression, do a lot of these things. And by the time he passed away, I came around, and I started changing as a person. So this thing, long story short, is this experience of where I thought was a curse as a childhood, and then what happened to my father, and then having this awkward relationship with him ended up being one of the blessings of my life because it got me through a really hard time. It taught me a lot of responsibility. And I also now know as a father, the person I don't want to be. And I know the things that I need to do and how I need to show up on a daily basis. So, there's a lot more to the story as
man.
always.
Well, listen, first of all, I want to say thank you.
Yeah.
I want to acknowledge the emotional intelligence that's obviously behind you and the awareness to what you went through, growing up.
Yeah.
That's not easy. And it's certainly not easy being able to articulate it the way that you did. And thank you for
Thanks for saying that, because I felt like I was fumbling that story quite a bit. I share it in closed groups a lot, and I feel like it's way more articulate there.
No, but you didn't fumble, my brother. You didn't fumble at all, and you speak it with confidence as well.
Well, so to close out that story, about 2 weeks before my father passed, when I was 27 years old, he was in the bedroom with my mother, and again, he was supposed to die many, many years prior to that. And my mother tells me this story about how 2 weeks before he passed, he turned to my mother and he says, I think I can let go now because my son is going to be okay. Because I share the same name as my father, and I passed the name down to my son for some weird reason. It's very important to me, that lineage, right? And when I heard that story, it made things make a lot of sense, because 2 weeks later, my father went into respiratory arrest for the third time in his life, and he pretty much just died in my arms that night. Like,
wow.
Went to the hospital and ended up passing the next day. But it just kind of like started to cultivate a lot of that faith. When you asked me, like, are you a man of faith? Yeah, I believe in something. I don't know what it is. I think the day I start defining what it is the day I start to lose it. But I just know I need to continuously like believe in it and push towards it.
Well, that's a great point. And I think that's also like, so it's like that with faith. I think it's like that with personal professional development. The day that we stop chasing that is the day we start to decline. Right. Like every single day we have to wait. And of course you can take days off. That's not what I'm saying here, but the intention of growth has to be daily in your faith, in you as a father, you as a partner, you as a friend, you as a businessman, all of us. It's very important to wake up every single day and set that intention. Because if we don't do it for that day, there's going to be no growth. Now, it's okay if you do that for one day. But now if you start to string 2, 3, 4, 5 days, turns to a week, turns to a month, turns to a year, now you got yourself that decline. So that's why I think personal and professional development is so addicting to me specifically. And I do think, I don't know if you feel this way, but coming from I don't know if it's genealogy or lineage, where alcoholism, drug abuse is in the blood, I find myself with addictive behaviors.
Oh, 100%.
Very addictive, right? Like I've chosen to lean into, I guess, what you can call positive addiction, but I want to be clear, no addiction is a good addiction whatsoever.
Anything done in excess. Yeah.
Anything in excess is not good. I'm fortunate though that I try my best to make sure that I lean into the good things. But do
Mhm.
you feel that on your spirit as well, that like at any point you can kind of be addicted to things in life, whether it's good or bad?
Yeah, 100%. And I don't think I'm there yet to share it with a bunch of people, but there was a long duration of my life from like 12 to 27 where I was definitely leaning into the wrong behaviors. And
Mm-hmm.
again, it's not about necessarily substance or alcohol, but it's about the things that it makes you do and the things that
Absolutely.
you regret.
Right.
And because of that, though, since I've been 27 years old and turned
Yeah.
my life around, you you're forced to go inside and really process those things
Mm.
because you don't get away from that beast unless you start to really get to know yourself. I got a question for you, if you
Yeah,
don't mind
yeah,
me asking.
absolutely.
So you were talking about like that day to day,
Mhm.
right? And you can't allow one day to become 2 or 3, right? And faith allows you to do that, but also do you is it just within in yourself, or also is the reason why you're doing the ACE Summit because you need that community as well on those days you can't lift yourself up?
I think it's both. I know community has been a part of my life forever. Even when I was growing up, community to me at that time in Mount Vernon, New York, was the Boys and Girls Club. It was a way to get away from the reality of what was going on.
Mhm.
Translate that further to the community that I had to have a support group in terms of my health. I spoke to you about the Crohn's disease, right? So it was surrounding myself with people who were going through the same things.
Yeah.
Then it came to my career, and I chose a career that's community based because now I'm on the other side. I believe firmly that you're most equipped to help the person that you once were.
Mhm.
So now that I'm on the other side and I'm an adult and I'm not a child anymore,
Yep.
I have the ability to help children,
Mhm.
to fund programs, to fund services, to fund activities. So I do that professionally. That's community. Podcasting changed my life. It absolutely changed my life. 2015, 16, Ed Milet, Tony Robbins was one of the first podcasts that I actually listened to.
Yeah.
From that day, I remember feeling something in me
Mhm.
when these men were speaking.
Yep.
And I'm like, holy shit. This is something that I need to lean into. So from that day forward, I stopped listening to rap music in the gym, which, by the way, at that time, I was listening to rap music and I found myself in the clubs seeking
Mhm.
attention from things that I wasn't supposed to be seeking attention
Yeah.
from, drinking,
Stimulates anger.
doing all the things.
Mhm.
So from that moment, that's where I leaned into podcasting.
Yeah.
That became a community for me. Then I did that for a period of 6 years where I started to listen to the things that were being said
So important.
and implement them into my life. So now I had tangible facts, right?
Mhm.
Now I was a 30 under 30. I was able to buy my first 2 properties by the time I was 29 years old. I was in a financially different space. Anything that I wanted, whether if it was material or something with faith, I was on a path to achieving those goals through action steps.
Mhm.
So there was tangible things that I was doing. Then from there, I was like, well, now I can help people. So then boom, create the podcast. Now I'm at a point to where when I don't have a good day, I'm okay with that.
Mhm.
I'm okay with waking up and not being in a great mood, but I believe this is a choice too, because why can't I, even if I'm in a bad mood, if I have a rule that I take something positive and I physically put it in my ear,
Yep.
that's an action step. I
It
do
is.
that if I'm positive. I do that if I'm negative. I
Mhm.
think a lot of people in our lives, the moment that we feel negative,
Mhm.
we're like, oh, I'm not going to do the positive action.
Yeah.
That's where I'm very different from people.
Yep,
I
yep.
always do the positive action, even when I'm in my shit.
Well, honestly, from the story you just told me, you started doing that very young. For example, we have a very similar upbringing, and you chose to go to the Boys and Girls Club, right? Which is a great community.
I didn't choose that. I kind
empowering.
of got forced. To
Well, you
go,
got
but-
well.
but
Thank
then I
God-
stayed.
No, but thank God
Yeah.
somebody forced you
Mhm.
because I think that my route was completely different. I
Right.
just chose to hang around the neighborhood and the
Yep.
older kids and ride BMX bikes till well after the streetlights are on, and very quickly, even
Right.
as a youth, that your life just it can go
Oh, yeah.
in such a different direction.
Mhm.
It's like that narrative about airplanes. They take off and they're constantly recalibrating 1 degree at a time,
Yep.
because if they're 1 degree off, they're going to land miles away from their original destination.
Mhm.
It's the same thing with
100%. I feel the same way in my life, and as
that's that
far
positive step.
as far as I believe that I've come,
Mhm.
if I'm going to be honest with you, I think tomorrow I can fall off.
Mhm.
And I truly believe that from the bottom of my heart.
Mhm.
Like I have this ability, right, to be as robotic and positive as I choose to be.
Mm-hmm.
But I also have the same ability, and this is what people don't understand because they don't see it because I choose not to do it.
Yep.
I could be very negative, right?
Yes, me
as
too.
negative as anybody is.
Yep.
I can choose to be just as negative, and I can choose to pick up a drink and drink to feel good, and I can choose to do all the negative things. But my mental resilience and the stamina and the endurance that I've built over the years, I'll put up against anybody in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And again, there's people that are stronger than me physically. There are people that are stronger financially. I mean, it's not about that for me. But for me, I know where I was. I know where I want to go. And as long as I'm continuing to climb that ladder, and if I have a day that I take a step down, I'm kind of okay with that.
Yeah.
But then the next day, it's my responsibility to get back on track. I don't know if that even answered any of your questions.
No, it's good though.
Just
It's self for self. And then one thing that I pulled out of what you said is I'm just one thought away from a bad decision. I constantly tell myself that because and it forces you to analyze your thoughts and more importantly, your emotions. I know I keep going back to this, but rarely do I find another man, and what I like to say is an alpha man, that is willing to go into that, because that's where we solve it all right there. And we solve it by going within, taking inventory of ourselves, taking inventory of what are our fears, where we harm people, where are resentments, looking at these things and examining these things so we can become better people. And then that's that self for self journey, rather than it's me versus you. Because when it's me versus you, that's a losing battle every day.
Talk to the person who's in the car, on the treadmill, listening to this podcast at work, where they know they need a change in their life, but they have yet to find a responsibility in themselves to implement these changes. What's your advice for that person to begin to look back, like you're saying, internally?
So are we talking about is the question to ask, what's the triggering?
How does somebody who wants growth, right, but hasn't leaned into the responsibility to grow, because I believe that it's a responsibility of a human being to say, I want to grow.
Yeah.
But you made a comment saying that you have to look internally. My question to you, how do you look internally?
Yeah. I think the first step is what we talked about before, is awareness, right? And being honest. Where am I at right now? Like in my darkest days, I remember feeling that a lot of people don't talk about, which I define as hopelessness, right? And if I gave my own definition of hopelessness is like being in a tunnel, right? And it's dark and there's a pin of light at the end of it, but you don't know if that pin of light is a way out or if it's an oncoming train. So you don't know whether to run towards it or away from it. So you just end up freezing. And the most important thing that we can do is be honest about that and say, I am in this hopeless state. Bam. Right. And we need to be honest with ourselves, or I need to be honest with myself about it. I need to be honest with my creator about it, whatever that may be. It can be just the cosmic energy. And most importantly, I need to find one other person that I trust to be honest about it too, because I need that sounding board. And that's where it will start. It will start with just that small little mustard seed, and hopefully grow from there and create momentum. I'm a big component of community. And also self-drive, but what came first, the chicken or the egg? That's why I asked you that question. Like, where are you finding it? Because I always ask that question, because some days I find it from within, and some days I don't have the battle and I need the people around me to stimulate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it all starts with that honesty.
I love that analogy, man. And I think too often when we ask these questions, people get lost. It's like, well, I know I need to do better. Okay, but if you take a seed, we all do, correct. But like, there's no seed, fruit, vegetable, anything. You have to begin. It doesn't just grow and morph into this vegetable. You have to water it, right? Like, you have to nurture it. You have to put some soil there. So it really drives me nuts about individuals who say that they want to change, and they're like, I just don't know what to do. You know exactly what to do, but you're just too scared to look within and really take a good look at yourself and look in the mirror and understand that you're fearful of what's to come. The real reality, though, is you're fearful to stay exactly where you are, because that's a negative place.
Exactly. So, and I love the fact that you touched on the word fear, right? Fear drives our life. You know, we're just not willing to admit it because we don't examine it because we're scared. And what is fear? Fear is, I've heard the acronyms false evidence appearing real, or it could be face everything and recover,
Or
right?
face everything and run.
And face everything and run. Exactly, right? There's so many acronyms and those are great, right? But regardless of what fear is, the most important thing to realize is fear to me is bucketed into two simple things. I'm either not going to get what I want or I'm going to lose what I have. And I'm constantly, it's dictating my behaviors constantly because I'm trying to avoid those two things. And fear is always placed in the future. And that's why I always go into these personal inventories. We need to examine our fears, but our fears usually are from our resentments. And our resentments are what we cast out. The world treated me this way. If my father wasn't this way, if my mother didn't have to work so much, if I was respected more at work, or if I got more attention at home, or assign whatever here, we build these resentments. And when we build these resentments, we tell ourselves a story, but we don't examine how they affect us. Like what I mean is, what's the result? What is the root of how it affected me? Like, am I resentful because I lost face? Because it's making me economically insecure? Is it affecting my relationships? When we start to examine that, then we start to discover the fear. Mm-hmm. And once we start to discover the fear, we now know how to maneuver. And our life isn't so robotic and just we can start to control it a little more. And we'll go out there and create less harms. Right. And what I mean by harms is a lot of times, a lot of the behaviors that I either have done in my life that I approve of or don't approve of, a lot of them were just instinctual. Like they were based off of my survival instincts. Right.
And present circumstance. Right.
But that's the thing, though. They weren't based off my present circumstances, because no matter the circumstance, you have a choice to go right or left. You have a choice to put on that podcast or listen to the rap music, right? There's always the choice. It's just what one in the moment feels easier, or what one in the moment, what's the decision that you're making? And a lot of time we make that decision based out of fear, but we don't examine the fear because, but we don't examine the fear. And when we don't do that, then our life kind of just is, it's dogmatic, meaning it just starts happening. Yeah. And then those dogmatic behaviors compound and compound and compound. And then before you know it, I haven't listened to a podcast in years, or I haven't done insert whatever behavior here in years. I fall out of that routine. But it's all in that examination, going back to what we talked about in the beginning, like being really honest with like, hey, this is where I'm at right now, because it's very easy to say, hey, this is where I want to go, or this is where I don't want to go. But it doesn't matter where you want to go or don't want to go if you're not honest with where you're at right now. And being honest with, what are the things that scare the shit out of me? What are the things I hate the most? Because those are often what's thriving our life, So,
Alex, how we doing, my brother? Yeah, phenomenal, CV, phenomenal. So take me back now, and that was really good stuff, man. Thank you. Let's talk about fatherhood a little bit. Greatest joy of your life, or what?
I love it.
Oh my God. How old is your son?
He's 7 years old.
7. Wow.
And he's just like me. He gives me a freaking hard time.
Hopefully he's better than you.
He is. He's going to be better than me, because he'll have more guidance.
Yeah. What's been the parenting? Again, I'm a rookie in the game.
Me too.
Only 3.5 years in. And I hope to have more. Yeah, I have a daughter.
Is her name Grace or no?
No.
Okay. All right. No, because the way you said it.
Michelle.
Okay. All right.
No.
All right.
What has been, so for me, like there's different stages, obviously, of like the challenges that come, when they're first born, it's like, the sleep patterns are jacked up. Then you get into a routine, then that routine falls out. Then it's like, you got to protect everything in your house because they're taking things and smashing them on the floor. So there's like different challenges and frustrations of parenting. What would you say is the most challenging yet fulfilling part of your parenting journey thus far? I know. Great question.
Yeah, you got great. You're the man, dude. I gotta, Claudio, I gotta book out another year. I'm coming back, right? The way I define parenting to me is being a parent is probably the most inconvenient thing. Children are inconvenient, right? And you talked a lot in this podcast about service, right? That's a big thing that drives you. And I find that service starts when it's an inconvenience to yourself. It's not true service when it's convenient. When it's inconvenient, that's where service starts. And service starts at home. Charity starts at home, right? So what is the biggest challenge as a parent? The biggest challenge as a parent is honestly my own mindset to it. The biggest challenge to me is letting go of yesterday and moving on to tomorrow. And what I mean by that is my son is 7, and I've witnessed many different stages of his life, and I hold on to I find myself holding on to the last stage a lot. And there is I think it's Modern Family. It's a show. And the granddad stands up in front of everyone and talks about his experience raising children and how one day you have this baby and you can't sleep, but holding them is such a joy, right? And then before you know it, that baby is crawling and you're enjoying that. And then the next day they're going off to school and running up and giving you a hug at home, and you let go of that for the next version of them and the next version of them. So the biggest struggle that I have as a parent is embracing the next version of it and really trying to let go of the last version and just say, hey, it was, and I experienced it. And I think a lot of it is based because I'm actually psychoanalyzing myself out right here in real time on this show. But I think it's because I didn't have a lot of those experiences, right? So I hold on to and cherish them, and I don't want them to end. It's kind of like in that movie, The Sandlot. At the end, I've
seen that one.
Yeah, it's a great one. And at the end, they have that picture of everybody, and they say there was that one time where everybody from the neighborhood came out to play, and it was the last time we all played together, and we didn't know it. And as my experience with my son is the same thing. Like every time I hold him now, like he's getting bigger, and I just keep thinking to myself, like I hurt my back this last weekend. I kept thinking to myself, was the last time I held him the last time I was able to pick him up? And just kind of like really embracing that moment. That's tough. It's tough as an entrepreneur too, because you get so lost in driving the needle, driving the number, and you can easily forget what's truly important at home.
Now, what do you want for your son as he grows up?
It's funny because my mother always said to me when I was growing up, I just want you to be happy. I just want you to be happy. I just want you to be happy. I remember getting angry at that. I am happy, obviously I wasn't. Right. And I sometimes struggle with that too, because again, the disease of more, I just, I'll be happy if, right. And as corny as it sounds, like, I just want him to be happy. I'm his baseball coach, and I want him to be an elite athlete, and I want to invest in that. But that's my goal, not his. And he's good. He's got a lot of natural abilities, but he doesn't seem as into it as I am. And I'm going through a process right now of letting that go. And he wants to do drums. So I'm just trying to, what do I want for him? I want him to be happy. I want him to find something that he's passionate about. And I want to be able to share that with him. So as of right now, he's into drums, and I'm trying to lower my expectations of whether he'll continue it or not. But I'm also going to try to get guitar lessons or drum lessons so I can share something with him, even though I'm not musically inclined. So, I know it's cliche or whatever.
No, it's not. So it's not cliche at all. And I'm actually going to share something. So I pray every day. Yeah. There's this bridge that I drive by, and, again, praying was something that I never did. I didn't know how to do it. So this could be a takeaway for somebody who's, either in prayer or trying to find some sort of new skill, right? They say just do it.
Yeah.
So I remember just like kind of talking out loud and being like, oh, God, I don't know what to say right now. But I'm asking for a safe day. And that was like day one.
Yeah.
And now I've done this over the period of the past 4 years. But every single day it starts out the same. And it's, dear God, first and foremost, I come to you to say thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to rise up on this beautiful day. Thank you for blessing me with my daughter, Callie Michelle. May she find her passion and purpose in life early. And then I go into, more of a prayer. But I say that because I don't really know what I want for her long term. But I want her to do exactly what you're saying, to find happiness through a passion and purpose. Anything that she's doing. It doesn't have to be a purpose to find success. But if she's in a dance recital, I want her to be passionate about that in that moment.
Yes.
So, while you were saying it, cliche, but like I'm very cliche with it too.
Claudio, can you send me that clip? Because I really enjoyed that prayer. And, I want to duplicate it. I won't delegate it, but I want to duplicate it.
There you go. Yeah, so it's something, man, and it's funny. They do say, like, you just keep practicing and things are going to come out.
Yeah.
I sound like a freaking preacher, my brother. I do this every day. It's very clear to me, like things just really start coming.
Yep.
And then, so I have my core, just like I would have a staff meeting, right? So I have my core agenda minutes.
Yep.
But then in the moment, different thoughts come to me. So like, I know that I want, and I ask for everything in abundance. And the reason why I ask big is because only he can provide big.
Yeah.
And I don't ask for small, I ask for big, right? You always shoot for the moon with these things. So I pray on, the safety and protection of my family and my friends. I pray for the success and the financial stability and the financial freedom and abundance every day.
Yeah.
And it just keeps growing, man. And like, before I know it, this will be the no snooze sermon. You know what I mean? And I'll just come and pray every day for people.
Well, you're setting the frequency.
100%. And I do it out loud.
Yes.
In the car by myself.
Well, you're
and sometimes my daughter's there and she's like, what the hell are you doing? But I'll tell you this.
Be weird. Encourage her to be weird.
I can show you a clip, and every day my daughter and I pray. I have her 3 nights a week and then 4 nights a week. So I share custody 50%, right? And I have a great co-parenting relationship with her mother, which is a foundation for, obviously what we do as parents.
Yeah, 100%.
But so Callie's prayer every single day is, dear God, thank you for my family. Thank you for my friends. Please keep us safe. Please keep us healthy. Amen.
Yeah.
And she also says, I miss you, Chi Boy, which is the dog that we used to have, but he's in heaven. So she does that at 3.5. So just that alone, her relationship and awareness with a higher power is going to be, far beyond anything that I could ever imagine.
I love that you do that, because I do the same thing with my son since he's been very young. We drive and we say, I'm thankful for, and then we just start saying random things and we go back and forth because we're just setting that frequency.
And then do you compete?
Who can
who can keep going?
Yeah, who can keep
absolutely.
going? 100%.
Do you beat him every time?
Yeah,
absolutely. I don't let my daughter win anything. That's the one thing about me.
Yeah.
I don't care if you're 3 years old or 75 years old. Last week I told the story. I was sitting in the freaking sauna, right? And this old lady comes in, and I'm like, God damn it! Now I have to stay in here longer than you. And I literally
do that all the time.
But homegirl sat there for an additional 25 minutes after I already did my 30.
Yeah.
I really wasn't feeling it. Are you looking to elevate your brand with captivating visuals and immersive sound? Look no further than the home of the No Snooze podcast, Kai Visions Productions, your go-to destination for cutting-edge audio and video production. At Kai Visions, we don't just create content, we create experiences that leave a lasting impact. From podcasts, YouTube variety shows, sleek corporate videos, to attention-grabbing promotional campaigns, our team of experts is dedicated to turning your vision into reality. Choose Kai Visions for a production experience like no other. It's time to make your brand known. Contact us today at kaivisions@gmail.com or find us on Instagram at Kai Visions. Kai Visions Productions, where audio-visual excellence meets innovation. Now, back to the epi. I guess as we wrap up here, I want some more.
I think it's important.
What?
Sorry,
Go
but
ahead.
you were talking about prayer, right? I think a lot of people, they think that they need to be religious in order to do it. Like I said, that's why I just frame it in setting the frequency, because some people, that's the only way it's palatable to them. I know in the beginning, that's the only way it was palatable to me. And so, and just real quick, touching upon again, because we all have resentments in our lives and that drives us. One of the best blessings that I've ever had is I pray for the people, places, and things that I'm resentful at. It is so powerful, and I don't know why, and it is not easy to do, but it seems to fall off.
So people I want to bring clarity to this. So people you might be arguing with, people that piss you off,
that have harmed me,
people that have harmed you, whether that's in the workplace, whether that's in the family, household, whether that's
places,
at the gym, anywhere, you pray for them.
Yeah. And the goal is to try to do it every day for 2 weeks straight. And
that's fire.
I don't know why, but for some reason within 2 weeks, it just kind of, and I've had some people do some pretty messed up stuff, I've let go of some pretty big resentments because of it. And because, the thing about resentments is like, I'm carrying around that baggage, right? So when I'm holding on to that, it's just not serving me. And resentment get me to do things like, do toxic things to myself because I'm doing it thinking I'm doing it to other people.
100%.
I'll show you, you know. I'm just gonna.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I think a lot of people can relate to that, man. That's good.
I like that you don't shy away from that. Like you don't shy away from your prayer life or your spiritual life or your religious life or whatever it is.
Recent though.
Mhm.
It's recent,
It's an
and
evolution.
also I'm stepping into that space a little bit more.
Yeah.
You know, many people have told me that, like, you know, there's a take it how you want it, but like many spiritual individuals,
Mhm.
pastors, preachers of churches, bishops have told me that there's an anointing on my life. I used to say, "What is that?
Mm.
What is that?" And they would tell me, like, you know, just keep doing what you're doing.
Yep.
Just keep doing it. And it's slowly happening. I don't have any expectation with it. I'm not telling you I'm opening a church. Like, I am the least religious
Yeah.
out of anybody. Mom's Jewish, dad's Catholic, Italian household growing up, but like kind of a mutt on mom's side. Like I got nothing, but like I read the Bible now.
Okay.
And it's something that like I'm leaning into, but I still
Yeah.
intentionally sabotage myself by not picking up a Bible some days.
Yep.
And I do it. It's just sabotage because I know when I read the Bible, I feel better. But there's times that I sit in my own negative thoughts. I'm like, I'm not reading the Bible today.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what people
I'll show you.
Yeah, but that's what people do in their lives. And then like
100%.
you become this negative like shell of a human being. And it's so there was this guy in the gym, man, just the other day. He said, "How you doing, man?" I said, "It might sound corny, but I'm absolutely great."
Yeah.
And he said, "Whoa." He said, "That doesn't sound corny. I've never heard that." He's like, "Why are you great?" I'm like, "Honestly, I woke up today, man.
Mm-hmm.
I woke up today. Like I'm in the gym. Like I'm not in the hospital, like fighting for my life.
Yep.
I'm not, you know, unable to move my limbs, as, you know, stupid as that may sound to some people. Like we take these little things for granted, man. I get to go, I get to, right? Like I don't have to.
Yes.
I really get to go to work every day and do the career that I chose. I can go make more money in real estate. I can go make more money in sales. I'm a great fucking salesman.
Mm-hmm.
But I get to do what I chosen to do for my career.
Mm-hmm.
I get to come here and I podcast. I get to move my body every day and work out. Like, so when I lead with gratitude, I'm great.
Yeah, you go from the I have to I get to.
Yeah, I mean, it's a blessing, man, every day.
It's funny because a lot of people always ask me, that's a question everybody gets asked, how you doing? And people know me as Mr. Outstanding because I say, I'm doing outstanding. How are you?
Even when you're not feeling outstanding, you say
Yes,
that?
because I tell people, you know, outstanding is not a circumstance, it's a mindset. And even when I'm not feeling that mindset, I just got to keep that repetition going. I got to keep those reps going, right? I got to have faith that I am going to feel outstanding in the future if I'm not going to feel it right now, and just kind of push myself into that. I like that anointment as well that you were talking about. I've always had people in my life, like whether they were pastors or my principal when I was younger, dragging me out of bed when I was skipping school, like trying to pull me into things more.
Maybe we could start something new. We could call it the Temple Church. Who knows? You know what I'm saying? They could start a whole new thing here.
Have the
yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
But really, like, and my point in saying that is not to be funny, but it really doesn't matter. You don't have to choose one thing. You could do whatever it is that you want. Talk to your dead grandma if you want.
Exactly.
Like, you know what I mean? Find a spirit
outside
find
of yourself.
something outside of yourself. Talk to your dead cat.
Yes.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Seriously, like a lot of people are very close to their pet. I miss my dog every single day. Man.
Figure out that faith. I know you had Matt Ramos on the show a couple weeks back, and he always kind of talks about this. But early on in his career, when I was talking with him, I said, entrepreneurship is like jumping off a cliff and building the plane on the way down. And it takes a lot of faith to do that. It's in our life, no matter where you look.
Yep.
It's just about how you look at it.
Yeah, and a shout out to Matt Ramos.
Yeah.
For the connection here, right?
Yeah,
Because that's, I believe, how we either Matt and Sean.
Matt and Sean, yeah.
Two incredible men.
Mm-hmm.
You know, happy to know those guys, and I'm happy to be able to sit down with you.
Yeah, me too, man.
The final question I guess I got for you is self-accountability, right? It's something that in your bio, you know, was off to the side. How do you implement that in your life? And like, how do you hold yourself accountable when things, I guess, aren't going so well?
Yeah, that's a great question. And you know what's weird is Sean had me speak at one of his events 2 years ago, and it was called the Accountability Forum. And that's all I spoke about was accountability. And I wanted to get that footage because I wanted to revisit it, right? Because I had all these bullet points of how do I hold myself accountable? And I think that it's different for everybody. Me, again, knowing who I am and where I'm at, right? I know that I do care substantially about what other people think, right?
I
So
think
I
we all
hope,
do.
yeah. So but a lot of people would say, "Oh,
Everyone says,
I
"I
don't
don't
give a
care." You
F
do.
of what other." Yeah, okay. That's why you wear a
100%.
Rolex, and that's why you drive whatever,
Whoa,
or dress the way.
Listen, shout out the Rolly gang.
Yeah, but I'm saying everybody, you know, that's why everybody dresses differently, because they care. They care what other people think, whether you're goth or an athlete, right? You cared. You wanted to be the best, right? So a huge thing for me being accountable is sharing what I'm doing with other people. Going on, that's why I recently just started going on podcasts. I'm just putting myself out there. I don't always know what I'm going to say. I don't know if I'm going to be articulate in the moment, right? But I'm going to put myself out there. You know, because once I start to do that, then it's like you and that lady in the sauna, right? I now have to, I can't underperform, right? It's like you didn't tell other people about it, but you set a standard, and now you have to hit that standard. I got to outlast her. Right. And
did you think that was weird, by the way, having a lady in the sauna? That didn't hit you? You
no.
didn't think about that?
No, were you in Europe though? Because does that happen in America?
This is what I'm saying. So my gym is a you thought it was weird, right?
Sign me up for that gym.
So listen, there's a co-ed of 24-hour fitness. Shout out to my guys at JV Mall.
It can either be a blessing or a curse.
That's what I'm saying, but it's a co-ed. It's
a
co-ed sauna.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead.
But yeah, just like sharing things and putting it out there, right? Rather than just kind of only bearing it within. Yep. You know, right now I'm in the middle of trying to write a book, and I don't know the title of the book. I know the concept of it, but I put it out there and I tell people about it, right? Because now I got to finish, because I can't keep going on stuff like this and talking to people about it, right? You know, when I was building the real estate company or the insurance company, you know, just putting it out there. The other day I was doing a goal seminar, and I was I coined it Funding Your Perfect Life. And they were asking me at the end of it, "Hey, what's your goal?" And I said, "Well, I want to be one of the biggest land taxpayers in the state of Connecticut." Meaning I want to pay over $1 million a year to the state of Connecticut in real estate tax.
Because that means that your property is fucking booming.
Exactly, right? So
it's a large property.
It sounds like a big goal, but I have to put that out there, right? And if I don't put it out there, then you know, how am I supposed to hold myself accountable, right? So that's one way. I mean,
I like that. Yeah, no. That's awesome. Anything you want to touch on before we close out?
I think that we touched on a lot.
We did.
I think that, you know, it was good. It was sporadic, right?
Yeah.
And the crazy thing about podcasts is you start talking about something, and then all of a sudden it was spiderweb for me. Yes. I'm like, oh, I want to say this about that, and this about that, this about that. And then as soon as it comes to you, you're just like, well, it's like the cereal aisle. I've got too many choices right now. What do I want to talk about right now? Because there were just so many inspiring things. So the only thing that I would say is I love doing this. I love listening to things like this. You gave a tip earlier. You listen to podcasts every single day. One of my favorite things to do is to listen to podcasts with headphones on, because then it feels like the narrative's inside my head. So I know that has nothing to do with anything. No, but I really don't care.
But also, you know, the last piece that you just kind of touched on too, like how you hold yourself accountable by putting things out here. Two extremely successful things in my life right now are the podcast and the ACE Summit, right?
Yeah.
Like Action Cultivates Excellence as a brand now. Both of those things, we had zero. And we put it out there. I remember being in a restaurant with Michael Pirelli. He always tells this story.
Starts as a thought.
I asked him to do a podcast, and he said yes. So then it happened to be the same day that we closed on my property. So we go out to eat, and here Dave Regina goes, like, telling the owner of the restaurant, "Hey, man, we got this podcast."
Nice. Yep.
And Mike was like, "What?" He pulls out his business card. He's like, "Yo, man, anytime you want to come record here and have this be a studio, you let me know." I didn't even have a dude to do the audio visual.
Because you put the frequency out.
Put it out there.
Yeah.
Then with the ACE Summit,
it's the same as prayer.
We went out there and we saw this property. And here, CV, take the phone out, record.
I remember those.
This is going to be a life-changing, transformative experience. We have keynote speakers coming to you, and we have a whole shebang that's going to.
Didn't even have the lineup.
We didn't have anything. And look at what happened.
Speaking into action.
But I think you can't just obviously speak, but when you speak, that frequency does get put out there, but now it's those action steps. So when you pair the putting it out there
Mm-hmm.
with a guided plan,
Yeah.
you're bound to win.
Put it out there and then take the action. Everything comes from a thought. Even the chair that we're sitting in, this was in somebody's mind before it actually became something tangible.
Thank God they did, because I'm not good on the floor. Let me tell you that.
Especially after this past weekend with my back. Man.
Yeah, your back
This is
is
actually
too.
a great chair. I'm glad you got rid of the crinky. Great.
Where could everybody find you and connect with you, my brother?
Yeah, just follow me on anything, Alan Stewart Jr. It's all pretty simple. And
Can you spell that or something?
yeah,
See if you got it.
put it in the lower thirds, right?
There you go.
I know that because of Alex. Alex taught me what the lower thirds.
See if you
is.
got it. Don't
Right.
worry, he'll link everything.
Yeah,
over
it's
there.
at Alan Stewart Jr. Just link up with me. But honestly, that's usually what I push. But I just, for all the men out there, I'm doing that men's group. It's in Fairfield,
What's it called?
Connecticut. It's just the men's group.
Oh, cool.
And the call to action that I really want to give is less pushing me and more pushing that. It's the next one's going to be on the 20th of March. I get a good amount of people. It's at Sacred Heart University, and it's free. You can donate if you want. It's bring $1, and I'd love to see some people there. I'm trying to create a community around that.
Well, that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
I'm liking what you're doing.
Nice.
Again, very, very grateful for Matt and Sean to connect us. I appreciate you coming on. The cancellation, I guess, was a good thing.
Yeah,
because
yeah.
It allowed
It's the build up. It's the anticipation.
Right,
of
the
it,
anticipation. Grateful for your story, man, and I really appreciate you coming on this platform and exposing the stuff that you did, and also the value that you brought here.
Yeah, I went a little further here today than I've ever done before. So thank you for that. I don't know how it came out, and I'm going to continue to do that because the more I do that, the more I'm going to find myself, and the more comfortable I will be putting it out there. And it's just like what you said, finding that one person that you can change their life, right? That finding that person that you used to be. So thanks for giving me a platform to do that.
Absolutely, my brother. Guys, as always, you can shop the latest merch at nosnoozeshop.com. Whether you listen to one episode or 180 with Alan Stewart Jr., we're grateful for you. Please share the show. Give us a share on Instagram. Leave us a 5-star review on Apple or wherever you listen to these podcasts. And as always, until next time, stop snoozing.
Get up and get after it.
Your story's beast, man.
Thank you.
Awesome.
There's
Shout out to my boy Alex over there in the corner.
Yeah, he did great.
Thank you guys for tuning in. That's another epi in the books. You can follow us on Instagram at No Snooze Podcast and leave us a 5-star review wherever you listen to us. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, No Snooze. Shop the latest merch at nosnoozeshop.com. Come on.